Star Wars 7x7, episode 2680. All right, we're going to continue with our series of brief looks at the Star Wars underworld, and in particular, the crime syndicates that we might encounter in the book of Boba Fett when it debuts at the end of December. Today, we're going to be talking about the Pyke Syndicate and highlighting 5 things that you might be particularly interested to know, including their relationship with the Hutts as far as we know it. And today's episode is being brought to you by cufflinks.com. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Boyvon, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So the Pyke Syndicate has already appeared in live action, and I think that's kind of important because when it comes to the Book of Boba Fett Season 3, it's one thing when we've only seen characters in animation, and for a while it was the case that we'd only seen the Pykes in animation, but with Solo: A Star Wars Story in 2018, we finally got to see Pykes in action. In live action specifically. And that's the first thing I'm going to start with, is the fact that the Pyke Syndicate is in control of the spice mines of Kessel. That is their big claim to fame, and that's where we got to know them best in Solo: A Star Wars Story. But there was a lot of chaos caused for the Pyke Syndicate on Kessel as a result of Kira's crew showing up and trying to steal coaxium, in fact successfully stealing coaxium from there. So what you need to know about Kessel is that not only is it the spice operation, but it's also coaxium and also materials that the Empire was using for its own empire building, if you will. But despite the chaos that Kira's crew caused in Solo: A Star Wars Story, the Pykes still retained a significant degree of power. According to Wikipedia, that power actually went at least as far ahead in the future as 18 ABY. In other words, about 8 years after the events of the Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian Season 2, as far as we know. That has a brief correlation / tie-in with the Poe Dameron Freefall young adult novel that came out prior to the release of The Rise of Skywalker. I'm sorry, the Department of Corrections is notifying me that Freefall actually came out in 2020, so it came out after The Rise of Skywalker came out. My goodness, time flies. Anyway, so yes, the Pykes were still in operation at least as of 18 ABY. Now, for a second top takeaway, here's something startling. They were involved in the whole Sifo-Dyas business that was initially revealed to us through Attack of the Clones, when Jedi Master Sifo-Dyas was credited with ordering the creation of the clone army. Well, we all know that that was a crazy, complicated plot by Darth Sidious, aka Sheev Palpatine, and Count Dooku, aka Darth Tyrannus. As for how the Pykes got involved in the whole Sifo-Dyas business, well, there was a storyline in Season 6 of the Clone Wars where we find out that then Chancellor Valorum sent Master Sifo-Dyas and an aide to negotiate with the Pykes because there was a whole bunch of nonsense going around over the spice trade and so on and so forth. But unbeknownst to everyone else, Darth Tyrannus, as in Count Dooku in his Darth Tyrannus disguise, got the Pykes to basically kill Sifo-Dyas. But the Pykes were like, yeah, we might need a little insurance policy on this. So the aide, whose name was Silman, was captured, kept alive, and held in a Pyke prison on their homeworld of Obadiah for like the better part of a decade. Now, for a third top takeaway, we'll start to talk about why the Pykes particularly matter to our conversation. First of all, they keep showing up. So, in Solo: A Star Wars Story, obviously the Pykes were involved in that. Then they were involved in Season 7 of the Clone Wars. That had to do with the Ahsoka's Walkabout storyline, where Trace and Rafa Martez are involved in a deal with the Pykes that goes south. And then the Pykes actually are referenced in the final story arc when Ahsoka has to go to Mandalore and fight Maul. So they're definitely continuing to be involved, and the Pykes are brought in again in a storyline in season 1 of The Bad Batch, and they're also referenced in the War of the Bounty Hunters situation, that whole multi-comic cross-promotional event initiative storyline thing. So it really does seem like there's a commitment on the part of Lucasfilm storytellers to keep the Pykes in the foreground for us, and so that seems to be a good reason why we might want to be considering them a little more carefully. For a fourth top takeaway, I'll cover their associations with other criminal elements. Most other criminal elements. We'll leave one out for the end. But at the time of the Clone Wars situation, where we're first meeting the Pykes, they become part of the Shadow Collective, which is Darth Maul's effort to create sort of a crime syndicate of his own. And the Pykes apparently were excited to join when they found out that the Black Sun crime syndicate was going to be a part of this. So yeah, they have a fairly complicated relationship with Black Sun, and I guess at some point the Black Sun folks said, hey, we should merge enterprises, and the Pykes said no, and that led to the Black Sun folks kidnapping members of the new leader of the Pyke Syndicate's family, and that actually ties into the Dark Disciple novel by Christy Golden that retells, or tells for the first time, I guess, the storylines from the Clone Wars that are part of the legacy of the Clone Wars, which include Asajj Ventress's time as a bounty hunter and her relationship with Quinlan Vos. And they also, in the time of Solo a Star Wars story, maintain what I believe Dryden Voss called a fragile relationship with Crimson Dawn. So it's really fascinating that the Pykes seem to have this ongoing collaboration with Maul, organizations led by Maul, but Maul's dead by the time of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. At least we hope so. We think so. I mean, he survived getting cut in half, so oh, good grief. He should be dead. He should be 12 years dead by the time we get to The Mandalorian Season 2 and the Book of Boba Fett. But otherwise, their operation seems to be chugging along just fine, and obviously we don't know much about it in the space between the end of the original trilogy with Return of the Jedi and getting to the Book of Boba Fett situation, but from what we've gathered so far, it seems like the organization is still significant enough. It's not like in decline the same way that the Hutt clan seems to be in decline. But speaking of the Hutt clan, that's going to be our fifth and final takeaway, and I'm going to get to that in just a moment, but first I do want to take a moment to say thank you so much to the fine folks at cufflinks.com who have been partnering with us on the podcast this month. I'm continuing to build out my Rebel-themed accessory suite with the R2-D2 tie and the Millennium Falcon tie bar. And now I'm adding a little bit of Resistance flavor to it with some very cool pop art style R2-D2 and BB-8 socks. And it really is awesome to be working with cufflinks.com because they have so many terrific accessories, and you really can build outfits that go from, subtle to outrageous depending on how bold you want to be with your style, and whether it's Star Wars or Marvel or sports teams or any other of a host of branded items. In fact, you can actually explore the whole site and take 15% off anything your heart desires there with no minimum purchase at all. All you have to do is use the code SW7X715 at checkout when you shop at cufflinks.com. Again, that's code SW7X715 when you shop at cufflinks.com. Okay, for a fifth and final takeaway, let's talk about the Hutts' relationship with the Pykes. It ain't great. Let's just put it that way. It ain't great. So going back to the time of the Shadow Collective, when Maul had organized this along with Death Watch and the Black Sun and the Pyke Syndicate, they tried to force the Hutt clans to be a part of this Shadow Collective operation to the point where they were actually attacking the Hutts. So assuming the Hutts have a long memory, which is probably the case, they can't be too happy with the Pyke Syndicate for trying to strong arm them into being part of this Shadow Collective. And getting into spoilery territory just because it's comparatively new. In the War of the Bounty Hunters series, there is an incident where Han Solo's carbonite block is actually put up on auction, and the Pykes wanted a shot at it, one might imagine, because Solo was responsible for some of the damage that happened on Kessel. He was certainly involved in it, but they lost the auction to none other than Jabba the Hutt. And I'm certain there was probably some particular satisfaction that Jabba took on that, not only because, of course, he had a beef with Solo, but he was also one of the Hutts that was strong-armed into the Shadow Collective when the Pykes attacked his palace. So yeah, definitely some bad blood between Hutts and Pykes for sure. As for what this could mean for Boba Fett in his series, The Book of Boba Fett, well, we talked about how him displacing Bib Fortuna means that he's kind of putting himself directly at odds with the Hutt clan, and the Pykes, yeah, they're probably paying very close attention to that particular development, and you would wonder whether they might want to say, oh, this is interesting, maybe we should kind of help Boba Fett out a little bit with this, or, you know, possibly partner with him. They certainly have indicated in the past that they do like to partner with other criminal organizations. They just don't necessarily want to merge with them. The thing I wonder about, though, is whether Boba Fett is going to work with the Pykes regarding spice. There's something about that just feels like, you know, I can't put my finger on it. And if this is something that, you know, you have knowledge about that you can point me to, I would greatly appreciate it. Chime in wherever you have a comment section for this episode, or at homebase@sw7x7.com. I have this sensation that Boba Fett wouldn't want anything to do with spice mining, spice dealing, drug dealing, basically. That whatever he has in mind for his new criminal enterprise would exclude that for some reason. So yeah, I don't know why it is that I feel like this is the case, and I feel like there must be something out there that's making me think this, but I don't know. That's what I'm walking into with this. So if you agree, disagree, have evidence to support or deny, then by all means, please let me know. And that right there is going to do it for this episode of the show. And it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.